You can't not smile when you hear this song. How is a ska punk band going to interpret these little things? Cool. Who wore it better? Welcome back to Low End University, and welcome to the channel's first themed month, with this month's theme being loosely titled, Who Wore It Better? Yes, I'm going to be taking a cover song and comparing it to the original to see, well, who did it better, especially regarding the bass lines. However, we're going to kick things off today with the illustrious a-ha from Norway and their iconic synth-pop bop, Take On Me, which happens to be like one of my favorite 80s songs ever. Now, most of the episodes this month will feature both an original and a cover I haven't heard yet, but a few of them I do know the original very well, which will be super fun for me. Now, the music video for Take On Me has over 2 billion views and over 2.5 billion plays on Spotify, so it's safe to say by now that this song is a staple in music history. It was first released in 1984 as a bit of a commercial failure, but the band went back to the drawing board a few times before releasing a revised version in 1985 on their debut album, Hunting High and Low, and that's when it finally broke and became the international hit that it is today. And if you scroll down here on the songs page far enough, well, we'll see the real Big Fish version mentioned, which is coming up next. But first, let's review the original Take On Me from a-ha. Now, it has been a long time since I've actually seen this video. Years. Apparently, the band worked with different director, Steve Barron. He was able to direct something that really caught on MTV, and the rest is history. Here in A major. Okay, same bass groove here in the verses. You can't not smile when you hear this song. Okay, first thing to point out with this bass part, which I know not to be a real bass guitar. It was done on a Yamaha DX7. It's a synth bass, but that really gives it that plucky kind of uniformity that sounds artificial in a way. Well, it is, but it punches through the dreamy kind of synth layering, some of that really gentle guitar palm muting that you almost miss if you're not listening, kind of the velvety vocals of the verse. And the contrast is in that bass groove, which if I were to play it on a real bass, it would be more picked, right? And then, so you'll notice the verse groove changes from being a little bit more upbeat oriented on the syncopation upbeat oriented now on the chorus. It still has that bouncing syncopation, the same articulation, but it's all downbeat oriented. So you'll notice the bass groove here. Still eighth note subdivision, still quarter notes, but it's it's losing that upbeat thing to really drive it forward. Simply moving something over an eighth note is a great way to drive it home. So that's a really clever songwriting thing here when the bass is really what gets you moving. But I'm saying all this to pay attention now to how bassist Matt Wong of Real Big Fish might interpret that in the next song. So I'm going to be making, again, some mental notes, really granularly here. See what's going on. All downbeats. Halftime. Five. Back to B minor. So it always goes back to B minor there, even though the song is actually in A major. And as the song goes on, you'll notice there's a bit of that ambiguity on a key change that comes up here in the bridge. But it really stays fairly diatonic and is just carried by the soaring melody of those vocals. Wow. See if I can maybe dial in a tone that might be a little more appropriate. Less bass. I'd say a lot of mids. So you want that uniformity. I would really try to downpick it all. Upstrokes obviously have a little bit of a different articulation, so try to get right between the pickups, even though I'm favoring the bridge pickup more to thin it up. You know, it has that plucky, I wouldn't even say trebly, so I pulled some of the treble out because you don't want a lot of this. Just want to get some of that out, clean it up. But focus into the mids. You want that plucky immediacy. So again, I'm never going to get a synth sound on a bass, but if you're ever covering this, I covered it in an old band for a while. I'm thinking back to how I approached it. I would just kind of get that thinner, pull some bass out, and then onto this bridge part here where the actual key change happens. We go down. It's the only reason I got the 5-string out because it goes down to the low C sharp, which you don't have on a 4-string. So the bridge coming up is C sharp minor, and it jumps a tritone interval to a G major. So it has that jarring transition between the two, which I'll talk about when I get there. Let's just roll right into it. This tone works for me. Gets the character, more or less. C sharp minor. It sounds closer to the synth the lower you get. But anyway, low C sharp, that's why I got the 5-string up to G, a tritone, so C sharp minor to G. Now, the G major chord is the first chord that's out of key because we're in the key of A major. Has the G sharp. So now we're flatting that and going to G, which to me would insinuate it modulates to D major temporarily, which again is 1 sharp away from the key signature of A major. 3 sharps, C sharp, F sharp, G sharp, and in D major, it's just F sharp and C sharp. So the G sharp and the G natural, the only difference between the two, so it can sound diatonic, but it really isn't. It could be looked at as an accidental. Either way, that tritone jump is a big part of the bridge, and you'll notice that it puts some tension in there, just being a tritone, but that little chromatic. So again, I'm always thinking like, how is a ska punk band going to interpret these little things? Or maybe they leave them out completely and make it their own. I'm very curious. Okay, let's keep going. That little part's tense. Up to B. Back to the original key. Okay, love the melody. It's such a fun melody to play, sing, play on the keys. And that palm muted guitar part, I feel like would translate perfectly to what guitarists in a ska band do. A lot of upbeat stuff, but maybe they're arpeggiating it. And that's a layer you miss if you're really not paying attention. It's perfectly blended in to kind of glue everything together. I normally talk about the bass being the glue. Well, I think it's that guitar part here. Just arpeggiating it ever so slightly. It's almost just like in and out. Oh yeah, different chords here. No halftime here, just keeps it driving out. And I think that's one of the things they changed in the later version that caught on. They kind of rewrote the ending to be more of a coda as I was reading. And sometimes that can just make or break a song. Driving home that hook, but it's a reprise slightly differently of the way you heard it introduced earlier. So they lost the halftime here. The bass is still driving it on the downbeats. And one tip as well, if you want to kind of get that plucky, more thin synth bass tone, depending on what type of synth bass you're going for. But I would say here, try to pluck closer to the nut. Use open strings because, again, this note sounds a lot less synthy than the open D. You want that precise punchiness, so I'm kind of playing everything open, close to first position, closer to the nut. Yeah, this is a bit different than the radio version that fades out with the drum groove, but okay. I don't care how many times I've heard that song, it just never gets old. It's just the nimblest burst of pop music you can possibly imagine, with an almost 3-octave vocal melody that builds and builds each time, and I will not be disclosing to all of you how many times I've attempted that at karaoke. But as I said, the bass part in that song, or the bass synth part in that song, is just perfectly composed to contrast kind of the more dreamy elements vocally, synth-wise, some of the guitar softness and that palm muting. And it just is punchy and pokes through in all the right places, and I think it's largely responsible for what gets you to move when you hear that song. I am very curious to hear Real Big Fish's cover of this song and their spin on it, because bassist Matt Wong plays a real mean bass line, y'all. And I'm almost positive with this cover, I've heard it out in the wild, maybe a bit of it a chorus. I remember hearing it one day faintly and thinking, someone more rock-oriented covered Take On Me. But it appears their cover was sparked by their involvement with the 1998 film Basketball, as it was included on the film's soundtrack and subsequently included on the international release of the band's third studio album, Why Do They Rock So Hard, from 1998. Well, without further ado, let's see who wore it better. Here's Take On Me from Real Big Fish. Okay. Same key. Oh, yeah. Ooh, man. I gotta say, I love this opening shot. They're all like right here, and the song starts with such a dense arrangement. Just everything kind of hits at once. I love how they drew out that drum groove. Made it a little weird with the guitar parts, and they kind of like personalized the arrangement up front with Matt Wong joining in, almost doing a derivative of the melody. I knew the horns were going to take that line. I feel like I remember that one part, like the vocals and the horns, just enough to recognize it was Take On Me, covered by someone else. So hearing all the actual bottom end of this is completely new, and I love how it's almost like he's playing the melody for a second there, but he's not. I'm going to go back and start that one over, just kind of take it all in. That's powerful, that low B. He's on a 5-string too. I should have kept the 5-string. Ooh. I don't know what's left to say, I'll say it anyway. Today is not my day to find you shying away. I'll be coming for your love, okay. Love the halftime here. That's a nice liberty. Cool. They swapped the halftime with the double time. Clever. And again, the whole goal of this series is just to kind of get in the heads of the band that covered the original, to see what their tendencies might be in terms of taking creative liberties, how they might change something up, or when it's more necessary to stay along with the original. And that's exactly what they did here right as the verse started. And the guitar part did what I suspected, upbeat, keeping that ska energy, but it really does kind of mimic what was going on in the original, just that palm muted guitar part. This feels like that, but maybe more sharp with the upbeat ska type of thing and not so gentle rhythmically, I suppose. But that swapping the halftime is a huge, like, pull the rug out from where you're used to the pulse being. So I like that liberty. I love that Stingray bass tone. He is, again, on a 5-string. I honestly should have kept the 5-string because the song opened with the low B. They have kept it in the same key here. I might need to go back and smoothen up this tone because it's a little shrill, trying to get that synth bass tone from last time. Yeah, something more like this. Okay. I want to go back and hear that switch up again in the rhythm. Okay, same key. It's almost a walking bass line.
Today is not my day to find you shying away.
Halftime here. Chugging, palm muting, double time. That's great. Perfect. And them doing the kind of doubled vocals, you know, the original track is very much about the singularity of his voice. So I like that in addition to the instruments being, I would say, acoustic compared to analog, synthy, digital, you know, this is a more lively rock thing. So the vocals being a bit more in that vein is just the perfect choice. Okay, the bass line here is tricky because it's like grabbing certain parts from the melody. These little 3-note groupings like, but it's still honestly sticking to the original in terms of its character. Obviously played fingerstyle, I believe, here. Okay. So needless to say, something here. Quick little bursts. They get real palm muty here. So that's like the metal leaning just for a second, but the whole song isn't characterized by that. It still has that nimble thing when they go back double time. That's just perfect. Okay. Ooh. I honestly thought a horn line was going to do that. The trumpet, like Flight of the Bumblebee kind of thing. So the abrasiveness of the guitar part is almost tongue-in-cheek as well. They're very much making it their own and personifying it with the little ways they can and know how. Bass is doing kind of a mean groove here. It's a bit less sparse than the original. But again, I'm missing that fifth string because, again, that is true to the original, going down and getting that octave. I love the bass here. I've never really gotten a look at what bass he played. Like, you know, I know it's a Stingray, but I remember him playing a red one in one picture in the past, back when I reviewed Beer about 2 years ago here on the channel. Okay, let's go into the bridge here. Love the double neck guitar. I did some chords. Something like that. Okay, I gotta get this bass line, or at least try to get a little better. I think it's been pretty consistent each time. Like that. I think the bass is going up higher there. I don't want to get too lost in what the original groove is. They might be taking a bit of a liberty with some of the notes there, because the original bass groove is... So he's going up to the E, or the whole band is, so it's taking it out of this inversion and putting it more in its regular E major form. So I think the bass is jumping up higher there, at least it looked like it. I've got to remember, shying away. I'll become a player of it. Yeah. Vocals are great. That's funny. I can already tell this format's going to be so fun for me to kind of nerd out on and be taking mental notes of how each band approached the song. Obviously, the band that covers the song is always going to be in this musically advantageous position to look at how to take a song and transform it, because you never write a song thinking, what would a band covering it do 20 years later? So we might as well do that. Well, they're just writing, innately, organically, and then the band comes along and maybe sees how they can change it to make it their own. So there's always going to be a notch up of that element in each song. First things first, who wore it better? I'm going to give it to Real Big Fish. And largely because there's just a real bass guitar. I mean, the original bass part is a playground for muting. It's so syncopated, so I can hear Matt Wong putting in a lot of juicy ghost notes, really moving it around. And just the character of that bass line being warmer, more punchy, and the whole thing just feeling more alive like a rock band is just the perfect treatment for that song. That melody on the synth is actually a perfect horn line. And the beautiful thing about that original Take On Me melody is that it embodies what I talk about a lot, notes staying close together. It's really just... So it's like kind of all right here. And that's kind of key for a horn part, because you wouldn't want a bunch of octave jumps on a trumpet or especially a trombone. So the fact that it's really conducive to the horn melody just made it pop so much harder. And I think my favorite thing about it is that Real Big Fish didn't just do a serious ska punk arrangement. They kind of injected what I would think would be a ska punk's band tongue-in-cheek approach, maybe, to take some of the more serious Europop thing out of it. Some of that abrasive guitar part stuff, the shredding at the end, a little bit dissonant, wrong notes just kind of thrown in. Nonetheless, I got to give it to Real Big Fish. The original is just so near and dear to my heart. I've loved this song forever. It never gets old listening to it, but I just love the real instruments approach in terms of bass guitar and all that stuff. So let me know what covers and originals you would love for me to analyze, break down, and compare. Who is your Who Wore It Better example? I have a lot of fun side-by-sides coming up in the queue, and our Patreon community knows what's coming up. In fact, they voted on a few of them, and if you want to be a part of the Patreon, it's the best way to support the channel. Come find us over there at patreon.com/LoneUniversity. I have bass lessons, music theory lessons. I review full albums every month just like this. So instead of 2 songs, it's like 10 or 15. And we have an amazing community to boot. All great people. Come hang out with us. And please subscribe for more. Don't miss the next one. Make sure you like the video. I'll see you in the next one. I love you all. See you in the next one.